My name is Robert Sterling. I am 71 years old. And I spent the vast majority of my adult life viewing the world through the lens of physics and the strength of materials. I was a civil engineer. My specialty was concrete and steel. Massive structures designed to withstand the weight of thousands of cars and the fury of Midwestern winters. I took pride in my work because what I built was tangible, functional, and durable.
I applied that exact same philosophy to my marriage with Sarah. We were married for 43 years. By any external metric, I was the model American husband of that era. I worked hard, I provided a solid income, and I paid off the mortgage on our suburban home 5 years ahead of schedule. I was the man who checked the tire pressure on her car before every winter and knew the location of every single fuse in the house. For decades, I genuinely believed that this reliability was the highest form of love. I believed my job was to construct an unshakable fortress around my family so that Sarah would never have to worry about a leaking roof or an unpaid bill. Sarah passed away 3 years ago from a sudden aneurysm. And the fortress I had worked so hard to build stood firm, but it was instantly emptied.
In the first few months after the funeral, I tried to handle the grief in the only way
I knew how. Through action and organization, I began systematically clearing out the attic, decades of our family history. It was there, shoved into a far corner behind the Christmas decoration, where that I found a large cardboard box covered in a thick layer of dust.
It was a telescope, a fairly expensive amateur-grade model. I had bought it for her on our 20th wedding anniversary because she had once mentioned a dream of seeing the rings of Saturn with her own eyes. As I wiped the dust from the lid, I realized the factory tape had never been cut. The box had never been opened.
Suddenly, a memory from 20 years ago washed over me. I remembered the evening I gave her the gift.
She had been genuinely delighted. But then I remembered the weeks and months that followed. I recalled how she would suggest taking it out to the backyard on clear, freezing nights. And every single time, my brain instantly produced a practical equation explaining why it was the wrong time. It was too cold, and we might catch the flu. I had an important meeting with contractors the next morning. We needed to be up early to shovel the driveway.
I always found a logical, reasonable cause to say later, and Sarah, being a gentle and accommodating woman, never argued. She simply nodded and put her dream back in the closet. Standing there in the dusty attic, I began to inventory all the other things we had postponed for this mythical later. The ballroom dancing lessons that seemed to me a waste of time and money. The spontaneous trip to New England to see the fall foliage that didn't fit into my rigid work schedule. The simple desire to sit on the front porch and talk about something other than the logistics of our lives, which I often dismissed in favor of watching the evening news or fixing the garage door.
I realized the bitter irony of my existence. I was an expert at building complex engineering marvels capable. I could calculate the load on a beam down to the pound. Yet I was a complete failure at building the simplest emotional bridge to the woman who slept beside me for over 4 decades. I was so obsessed with securing the foundation of our life that I completely forgot about the life that was supposed to be lived upon that foundation. I always chose the useful over the joyful, the urgent over the important, the concrete over the stars.
I now live in a house that is a monument to my efficiency. Every appliance works flawlessly. There isn't a single draft, and the bills are paid automatically. It is a perfectly functioning machine for living, and it is the loneliest place on earth.
I often look at that unopened telescope. I understand now that it wasn't just about Saturn.
She wanted me to stand beside her in the cold darkness, shivering not from the temperature, but from a shared awe of something bigger than my blueprints. She wanted me to be her partner in wonder, not just in duty. I provided her with safety, but I denied her and myself the moments of pure, impractical joy that true intimacy is made of.